Kate Beckinsale kicking ass while wearing tight black leather in 3D? Give me my ticket now. Thank you. Yes, this is the actual ticket from when I went to see the film. So, after a quick recap of the previous films, we begin with Celine, our main protagonist from the first two films, played once again by Kate Beckinsale. A vampire in tight black leather. Oh. She's on her way to meet her lover Michael, a vampire werewolf hybrid who was previously played by Scott Speedman. Unfortunately, she gets ambushed, incapacitated, and then frozen in a cryogenic chamber, only to be woken up 12 years later. And most of the movie after that point has her on the run from her captors and on the search for Michael. I'll let it be known that Scott Speedman is conspicuously absent from this installment of the franchise. So, what did I like about this film? Well, first of all, Kate Beckinsale is an absolute badass. This is a woman with a mission, and she's not going to let anything stop her. She's not letting anything get in her way. She will kill, she will do whatever it takes, and look really good doing it. And she's not the only thing that looks really good. The effects in this film are top notch. Some of the best in the series, and the 3D really goes a long way to help enhance that. Like there's this one shot where it's actually lingering on this werewolf or Lycan's face. It looks legitimately freaky, but it's very lifelike and fluid. And ordinarily the other films didn't really focus too much on the faces. They didn't hold on them. But the 3D in itself just makes all the little details stand out, and it just looks so good. Granted, it's still overpriced, but at least you're getting a little more bang for your buck, right? As you may or may not be aware, this is also the first film of the series to be released in 3D. As such, there are certain shots which you can clearly tell were made for the 3D, like where she's throwing something in the direction of the camera. Luckily, like a lot of the action which this series has been known for, it's done in a very stylized manner and doesn't really look all that cheesy. As such, the fight scenes are very well choreographed as well, though some may have argued that it's a little bit like a video game at times, but I think that just kind of adds more to the fun of it. Now, don't get me wrong, this is a fun movie, but it's not without its flaws. One problem I had right off the bat, Kate Beckinsale is the only actor to be returning in this film. That's right, we don't have any of the characters from the previous films. Instead, we get an entirely new cast of characters, none of which are anywhere near as interesting or memorable as the ones in the previous films. This is most likely due to a lack of real in-depth development, which could also be attributed to the film's runtime. A lackluster 1 hour, 28 minutes. Now, I know I was not the only one disappointed when I found out about that. It's like a pattern. Each film in the series has been shorter than the last. From that, I expected the film to focus more on the action than the actual story, and yeah, that's pretty much the case. On a positive note, this makes it so the film can stand on its own without having to rely too much on the previous films in order to make sense. I still think it could have used another 20 minutes or so, but maybe they're saving the director's cut for the Blu-ray. But let's return to my original complaint, the weak supporting cast. It's not that the acting is bad, it's just that the characters either come off as just plain unlikable or not nearly fleshed out enough. Like we have this one rogue vampire named David who's trying to help Celine out, only I don't really remember anything about him. He comes off as very generic to me. It's like they wanted to make him the replacement for Michael in this one, but he fails to bring anything new to the table. Bottom line, he's boring. Then there's David's father, Thomas, who is basically the leader of this pack of vampires who have been hiding out from the humans. He's basically just the one-note character who doesn't think they should help Celine even though David does, and the only real thing I found memorable about him was the actor who played him, Charles Dance. I give the actor credit, but the character just comes off as a douche. He completely lacks the charisma that Bill Nye had back when he played Victor in the previous films. Again, a forgettable wannabe. Then we have our main antagonist, Dr. Jacob Lane, played by Stephen Ray, who is basically the director of Antigen, the company which captured Celine and kept her frozen for 12 years. Again, he's not nearly as memorable as Bill Nye's Victor, who was a vampire elder, or even Michael Sheen, who played Lucian, who was a leader to the Lycan clans. Yet he actually managed to bring something new to the table, because he's a completely different kind of villain. As, at least for the first 2/3 of the film, he's just a man in a suit. Granted, in the third act, the character does go through a major change, but before that, It's basically just left up to Ray's delivery, and he does a very effective job. Still, the intimidation factor, even during the last act, just isn't really there with the character. He's still cool to watch, but just not up to par with Lucian or Victor. Are you starting to get bored? You look a little bit bored. Okay, so I'm just going to quickly sum up the two last remaining characters of the supporting cast. There's a detective named Sebastian who ends up helping Celine and was investigating the stuff with Antigen earlier in the film, but it's never really fleshed out or expanded upon. I mean, he does get a bit of a backstory, but it's nothing really interesting, so he's altogether forgettable. Then there's a young girl named Eve who is also being held captive by Antigen, and minor spoiler here, but it's not really a spoiler. She is Celine's daughter. Yeah, I'm sure most of you were able to figure that out for yourselves. Now, I genuinely liked her, but the thing is, aside from the fact that she and Celine were basically able to share this kind of mind link where they could like see what each other was seeing, there wasn't really anything new to the character. Like Michael, she is a hybrid, and he's the father, by the way, but at the same time, there's nothing really new about that because we already had Michael for the first two films. Nothing is really expanded upon about the character. I will say this much. The film has a really cool climax, great ending fight scene, and a lot of slow motion action.
Because fighting in slow motion is cool.
Whoa. Not to mention it does leave things open for yet another sequel, so hopefully that will improve upon the flaws of this film. Assuming it gets made, of course. So to sum up my thoughts, it's a really fun movie. It's got a badass protagonist. Kate Beckinsale is just hot. Great special effects, great use of 3D. Forgettable supporting cast, definitely too short. But as a straight up action film, it's a very solid effort. So with that, I give this film a final score of 7.5 out of 10. Excellent. Now keep in mind it is rated R and is very violent, so young ones, stay away. Though there's not a lot of language. I only counted like 2 F-bombs. Regardless, keep the kids at home. So I hope you enjoyed my review and I hope that it was informative for you. And if you want to see more, go to my channel. While you're at it, feel free to subscribe. I could always use a few more viewers. Don't forget to like. Peace!